Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the minimum price for a unit of alcohol will be 50 pence from May. Passengers on one of the busiest rail routes are facing rush hour overcrowding as ScotRail cuts the number of carriages on the line.
The train we're on this morning was 3 carriages and we're really sort of like crammed in, so it's just going to really disrupt the commuting times for people, you know.
Also on the programme, Scott Brown, the Scotland captain, says he's stepping down from international football for the second time in his career. Is this the best rugby the national side have ever played at Murrayfield? A former captain tells us he thinks it is. And Thunderbirds are go as Parker the Puppet goes up for auction in Edinburgh and attracts worldwide attention. Good evening. Good evening. The Scottish Government is recommending the minimum price for a unit of alcohol should be 50 pence. It follows almost 6 years of legal argument which held up implementation of the policy. The new pricing arrangements will be introduced in May. Ministers say the move will save 60 lives in its first year. Our Home Affairs correspondent Rival Alderson has more.
Finally, it's been decided. From May the 1st, alcohol will be subject to a minimum price, a measure designed to drive drinkers away from cheap spirits and high-strength ciders, which are believed to cause most harm.
It's an exciting and great position to get to this stage, and we look forward to getting on with implementing it and seeing the benefits and the reduction in harm.
Alcohol charities say it's important to bring minimum pricing in now, as it's been estimated 60 alcohol-related deaths will be saved in its first year.
If we start discussing different prices, there's a risk that we open up the discussion again. And really we need to see it being implemented, to start seeing the benefits, to start seeing those lives being saved. And then we should be having a discussion in light of the evidence of the actual effect of minimum unit pricing about maybe increasing it.
Alcohol charities have researched how cheap drink can be across the country. They found bargain cider selling at £3.49. From May it'll cost £10.90, more than triple the price. Pear cider, currently costing £4.29, will go to £11.29. Own label wine at £3.09 will cost £4.98, while the cheapest vodka found at £9.97 will go up by a third to £13.12. The government says the measure will cut the damage caused by alcohol, but some clinicians say because it doesn't address the causes of alcohol abuse, it could actually have unintended consequences.
I'm not confident that minimum unit pricing of alcohol will solve the problems of addiction which affect so many families in Scotland. I think there's a real possibility of people using other substances because they can't afford the cheap alcohol which they're used to.
Christopher Ryan, who's blind and struggles with a drink problem, doubts whether the new pricing will have a significant impact.
I don't really think it's going to work. I know for a fact I'm an alcoholic myself, and I know myself, if I can find any way of getting it cheaper, I will. Maybe make me cut down, or as I say, I'll find other ways of getting it cheaper. For example, by doing home brew.
The government insists responsible drinkers won't be hit by the policy, which can be reviewed by MSPs in the future. Rival Alderson, reporting Scotland.
Passengers on one of Scotland's busiest rail routes face overcrowding after ScotRail had to cut the number of carriages on some of its trains. The rail operator is being forced to reduce the service between Edinburgh and Glasgow until May. It says the lease on some carriages has come to an end and it can't find any replacements. Here's our transport correspondent David Henderson.
The train, now arriving at platform 2, is half an hour late. The scene this morning at Falkirk station as a broken down train caused delays through the central belt. That put yet more pressure on ScotRail's trains, which are short of carriages. One of our viewers took this photo of their morning commute. The end result for some, standing room only.
The train we're on this morning was 3 carriages and we're really sort of like crammed in, so it's just going to really disrupt the commuting times for people, you know.
Mine was fine. I got the 8:45 to 9, and my train was fine. It was shorter than normal, but there was still seats for everyone.
So how can ScotRail run short of carriages? Well, it doesn't own them or the trains that pull them. Instead, it hires its rolling stock from companies. And the lease on 4 of these diesel trains has run out. They were meant to be replaced last autumn by these new electric trains, but they're not yet ready. The end result? Each day, 10 trains will run with fewer carriages than normal. These are services between Edinburgh and Glasgow via Falkirk High, the busiest commuter route through the Central Belt. So if ScotRail's short of carriages, why not just hire some more?
We're working with Hitachi to get the brand new carriages into traffic as soon as we can. In terms of hiring new carriages, there are no other suitable carriages anywhere in the UK that we can just simply draft into Scotland. So we've shortened a handful of services each day. We've created a new fare between Edinburgh and Glasgow via Airdrie, and we encourage customers to travel on that route if possible.
There is what they call a rail revolution. In 2 years' time, there will be far more services in Scotland's rail network. There will be more carriages, 25% extra capacity will provide seats for passengers, but it's cold comfort for passengers today, standing on a platform trying to get onto a busy train.
In the past 2 years, ScotRail's been under pressure to improve its service amid delays and cancelled trains. Now it faces a fresh challenge to get back on track. David Henderson reporting Scotland.
And there's more on Scotland's rail network on a BBC Scotland Investigates at 7:30 tonight on BBC One Scotland. There's a warning of possible significant disruption over the coming days, with heavy snow and low temperatures forecast for much of the east and north of the country. Transport Scotland is monitoring the forecast, and a resilience meeting was chaired by the Deputy First Minister this morning. An amber warning to be prepared has been issued for Wednesday, when the weather system that's being dubbed the Beast from the East is expected to arrive.
Can't emphasise it enough. We've already had ambers out this winter and we've seen the disruption on the M74. We've got our resources all planned. They'll be out there 24/7, doing everything they can to make sure the roads will remain open and safe for people to use. However, the disruption, it looks as if, given the forecast and given the message that we're getting from the Met Office, that there will be a high risk of disruption.
And Judith will be here later in the programme with a full weather forecast to keep you up to date on this. A teenager from Irvine has appeared in court charged with drugs offences after 6 13-year-olds were treated in hospital over the weekend. They became unwell on Saturday evening and were kept in Cross House Hospital overnight for observation before being discharged. It's thought they'd taken MDMA tablets. A 17-year-old was released on bail and a report has been sent to the Procurator Fiscal. A senior UK government minister has warned that Brexit must not be used as an excuse to break up the United Kingdom. David Lidington said that severing ties would leave everyone in the four nations weaker, poorer and less secure. The Cabinet Minister was delivering a keynote address on Brexit and devolution in North Wales. Our political correspondent David Porter was there.
In a crucial time for Brexit, an example of the European project on a grand scale. Here they make the wings for every Airbus plane. The factory may be in Wales, but most of the staff come from across the border in England.
Right on, David Lidington.
According to the Prime Minister's deputy, this is the union working in practice, and a warning not to let Brexit put that in jeopardy.
And some want to use this as an excuse to loosen the ties that bind us together or even sever them completely. I believe such an outcome would leave every one of our four nations both weaker and poorer.
But also a prediction that a deal could be done with the Scottish Government. According to ministers at Holyrood, they're not the problem.
We've been trying to have sensible, serious negotiations, and then we have this tub-thumping speech from a man who 2 years ago called Brexit nonsense, confused nonsense, and is now a cheerleader for Brexit and attacking the Scottish Government, the Welsh Government, for not being cheerleaders for Brexit.
Enter the debate too the Labour leader. Jeremy Corbyn has softened his stance on a customs union, but he's also mindful of what Brexit could mean for the UK as a whole.
We will not let those who want to sow divisions drive this process. No scapegoating of migrants, no setting one generation against another, and no playing off the nations of the UK.
Back in Wales, the job of manufacturing goes on while the politicians squabble. This is an important week for Brexit. The Prime Minister will be releasing further details of her negotiating strategy, and the Scottish and the UK governments are continuing their talks. Like those who build the wings here at Broughton, they will all be hoping that their Brexit ideas fly. David Porter reporting Scotland at the Airbus factory in North Wales.
And our political editor, Brian Taylor, joins me now. Brian, another round of Brexit speeches, another day closer to Britain leaving the EU, but still no deal.
Still no deal on the overall situation regarding Brexit, no deal on customs union, no deal on single market, and no deal on this business of devolved powers. What David Lidington is trying to do, if you like, is to offer a philosophical framework within to pitch what is a very mundane, pragmatic, practical offer, the latest offer from the UK being that most of these powers, which are in devolved areas, would return to Holyrood, but some would be held back by Westminster, he says, to create UK frameworks. And he accused, in his speech today, he accused those who were against this position of perhaps even jeopardising the union. I don't suppose that Scottish ministers, Mike Russell, Nicola Sturgeon, would shed too many tears over jeopardising the union, but they are adamant that they are not at role play here. It's not playing games. They say they are simply trying to protect Scotland's interest and protect the fundamental structure and nature of devolution. And right now, as of tonight, they are saying no dice to this offer. They want those powers returned. They want there to be agreement then across the UK, but with the Scottish Parliament in the driving seat as well as the UK government. And they say that as things stand, they cannot recommend support for the EU withdrawal bill. In the Commons, they're even preparing their own continuity bill at Holyrood that would allow these powers to be returned to Scotland, and you know the running of matters still to carry on as is. It's brinkmanship, Sally, on both sides.
Brian, thanks very much for that. The chairman of Stirling Albion has been suspended while officials at the club investigate whether an allegation of sexual abuse made against one of their coaches was properly handled. Stuart Brown was asked to step aside following a meeting of the Supporters Trust, who own the Scottish League Two side. Well, our reporter Stephen Godden is in Stirling tonight. Stephen, what more can you tell us about this?
Well, Sally, Stirling Albion were something of a first as far as Scottish football is concerned. Back in 2010, they became the first club to be owned by the supporters. And the way it works is this. There is a Supporters Trust board who effectively appoint officials, including the chairman, to run the club on a day-to-day basis. And it is this Supporters Club board who've taken the decision to suspend the chairman, Stuart Brown. Now, they've done so, they say, to allow an investigation to take place into whether or not allegations of sexual abuse made against a youth coach were properly handled. Back in 2016, there was a police investigation into this youth coach which led to them being charged with sexual offences. Now, the club say that at the time, in line with their child protection policies, that the coach was suspended, and they remain suspended while the legal process continues. They also said that at the time they contacted the SFA. What members of the Trust Board are unhappy about is that they say it's only in the last few days that they learned anything about this situation at all. They had a meeting yesterday and they decided that while there's no suggestion that Stuart Brown acted illegally or is in any way involved with the allegations at the centre of this, nevertheless he would be suspended while an investigation took place, essentially into why they weren't told about what was going on. They say that that investigation will be independently carried out, and it will also look at child protection protocols at the club more generally.
Stephen, thank you very much for that. You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's 18 minutes to 7. A reminder of tonight's top story. The minimum price for a unit of alcohol in Scotland is to be 50 pence. It'll be introduced this May. And still to come, actress Karen Gillan turns her hand to writing and directing her first feature film. Having qualifications if you have a disability improves your employment prospects, but not as much as you might think. Only 75% of disabled graduates are in work, compared with nearly 90% of non-disabled ones. Our reporter Ian Hamilton reports.
Julie McElroy was born with cerebral palsy. It affects her mobility, her speech and her hearing. Julie believed getting as many qualifications as possible would give her more opportunities to find a job. That has turned out not to be the case.
So tell me,
What qualifications have you got and how many jobs have you applied for?
So I've got 2 qualifications. So I recently graduated with my PhD from the University of the West of Scotland last summer, and I also have an undergraduate in IT. And in the last 24 months alone, I've applied for 340 jobs.
340 jobs, that's a hell of an amount. What barriers do you think you face when you're looking for work then?
The barrier I've faced in looking for work has been trying to find the right employers. I think some employers will have that underlying fear. They just don't know what to expect.
Only 1 out of 10 non-disabled graduates are out of work. However, that rises to 1 in 4 for disabled ones. According to one organisation, it's all about a misunderstanding among employers, and they could be missing out on some real talent.
I think it would be good if employers looked at their recruitment practices from, beginning right up until interview and the potential barriers that could come up for disabled people, so that all these, really talented disabled people aren't being excluded from working for them, because everyone's missing out, really.
Fiona Stewart is from Moffat and is deaf. She has a degree in psychology and biology. She has 2 part-time jobs, but is really struggling to secure a full-time permanent position.
I am profoundly deaf, and that can be a little bit difficult for me to do a job, because sometimes I feel that maybe the employer might feel a bit put off by me being deaf, because they wonder how do we communicate with me.
With a growing elderly population and a reducing workforce, can employers afford to ignore well-qualified people like Fiona and Julie? Ian Hamilton, reporting Scotland.
Scott Brown's decision to step down from international football is great news for Celtic, but sad news for Scotland, according to his club manager, Brendan Rodgers. It's the 2nd time the Celtic captain's announced he's retiring from Scotland duties. Jane Lewis has more.
Flexing his muscles for club, but no longer for country. After 55 caps, Brown has bowed out. In a statement, he said, "I felt that, given the demands which are increasing all the time in football and at this stage of my career, I wasn't able to give both my club and country my best, and I needed to focus purely on Celtic at this time."
Great news for Celtic. It's obviously sad for the Scottish team, but I think for him and his career going forward, and for his own fitness, he's getting to that stage of his career where really, he wants to prolong his career at club level, and with the amount of games that we have at club level taking away international football, then it's a real sensible decision.
Brown made his debut for Scotland in a friendly against the USA on the 12th of November 2005. His competitive debut came against Georgia in March 2007. And as he became an influential player for his country, he was made captain in 2013. In August 2016, he retired from Scotland duty, only to be lured back 2 months later by then national manager Gordon Strachan. But new Scotland boss Alex McLeish will have to do without his services.
I just hope that he doesn't regret this decision, because if, and it's a big if we qualify for Euro 2020, and he's not part of that, and you look back in your career when you finish and say, and I could have had the opportunity to play for my country at major finals, it could be a decision that he regrets.
Regrets or not, Scotland will have to move on without the man who's been their captain for the last 5 years. Jane Lewis, reporting Scotland.
To rugby now, and centre Hugh Jones says Scotland must be able to replicate their fantastic home form away from Murrayfield if they're to become one of the world's top teams. Jones scored 2 tries as the Scots beat England to win the Calcutta Cup for the first time in a decade. More from our rugby reporter Andy Burke.
For the first time in 10 years, Scotland will drink from the Calcutta Cup.
A decade of disappointment washed away in a moment. The rare Scottish victories over England have mostly been built on passion and courage. That was evident here, but more than anything, it was skill and attacking ambition that won the day.
Scuttling into 22, Watson and Brown gets him, but it's Jones! What a score! Hugh Jones, who can stop him?
And that first 40 minutes was probably, well, maybe the best 40 minutes I've ever seen Scotland produce at Murrayfield. They've added that sort of creativity and flair and excitement to sort of the toughness that they brought into their game. And when you get that combination, you then become a very good side.
Finn Russell, much maligned for his first 2 performances in this Six Nations, was the maestro.
Oh, Russell!
This pass, the pass as it will be remembered in Scottish rugby folklore, demonstrated the fearlessness that he and his team played with.
Last week we won, and everyone says I wasn't that good, and against Wales the whole team got a bit of a slating, but you know, we've managed to bounce back against France and today obviously, so that's the job we're in, and you know, you've got to accept these highs and the lows.
The next challenge is perhaps even greater: Ireland in Dublin.
If we're going to become a really great team, we're going to have to start winning away, which we haven't really done for a while. So yeah, that next game is a massive test. So that's what we're thinking about now.
Scotland shook up the rugby world on Saturday. Now they need to go and do it all over again in Dublin. Andy Burke, reporting Scotland.
The actress Karen Gillan has launched her first feature film as a writer and director. She says she was inspired to make The Party's Just Beginning after reading that suicide rates in the Highlands, where she grew up, were higher than any other part of the UK. The film had its world premiere at the Glasgow Film Festival at the weekend, and our arts correspondent Polly McLean went to meet her.
It's a hard-hitting, but often bleakly funny story of a young woman going off the rails after the suicide of her best friend. Karen Gillan was inspired to write The Party's Just Beginning after discovering suicide rates for young men in the Highlands were higher than other parts of the UK.
I was really interested to find out why that was the case, and also why in this part of the world, because I grew up in Inverness. It's just the most idyllic, beautiful, picturesque place to grow up, and I'm just like, immediately there's this strange, interesting contradiction, and so this film is sort of me exploring that.
Quiet still, please, and action.
The film was shot at various locations around Scotland. This is Bo'ness posing as Inverness, and as a director as well as lead actor, she wanted to show a different side to her hometown.
For me, I always wanted to take the postcard image of Inverness and then just like look beyond that, so we still have the picturesque quality, but we're telling a much darker tale. And I think the only other film I've ever seen set in Inverness was Loch Ness, so maybe it's the antithesis of that.
Premieres are a regular part of life for an actress who's appeared in several Hollywood films, but she hopes this one, her first as a director, is the start of something new.
I'm currently in this weird spot in my life where I'm like on 2 different trajectories almost. Like, so there's the directing but also the acting, so I'm kind of trying to jump between the 2, but I know that I really, really want to direct. So, and yeah, I have a million ideas about directing, so hopefully one of those is going to be the next thing I do.
Polly McLean, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
The Tracy Brothers, Lady Penelope, Parker, remember them? All famous characters from the classic hit puppet TV show Thunderbirds. And one of those puppets is being put up for sale in Edinburgh this week. It's all part of a unique collection brought together by the late Glasgow-based puppeteer John Blundell. Cameron Buttle reports.
This is our top lot, and we are hoping he will do very well at auction on Wednesday. The estimate on Parker is 5,000 to 7,000. We've got a lot of interest already, and we're hoping he will do really well.
You called, milady?
Yes, Parker. Get the Rolls Royce. We're going for a little drive.
You're quite fond of him yourself,
I love him, yes, absolutely. And, you know, once it's the face, isn't it? There's this sort of mischief, and you sense a real person there, a real personality. John Blundell, he was absolutely passionate about what he was doing. He fell in love with the theatre in his native Birmingham at an early age, and then shaped his career around that passion. He became a maker, a designer, a performer, really an innovator too. Here we have a collection of Punch and Judy figures. They date from the early 19th century right up until the 20th century, and they also include a number of Punch figures made by John Blundell himself.
This unique collection brings together more than 200 items, lovingly created, crafted and designed by John Blundell, throughout his career. And it's creating masses of interest from all over the world. And this entire collection goes under the hammer on Wednesday. Cameron Battle, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Well, as we heard earlier, we're being warned to brace ourselves for the coldest spell of the winter. Judith's here with the very latest on the forecast. Freezing air from Siberia, I don't like the sound of that.
Absolutely, this is really an unusual event. Thank you very much, Sally. But look at this beautiful picture postcard view from Shetland earlier today, the calm before the storm, if you like, because things are set to change significantly, I should say. We are looking at disruptive snow coming away from tonight onwards. Bitterly cold air feeding in from the east, biting easterly winds making it feel even colder, and frost and ice will be an issue as well. Here's why. All the way from Siberia, there's extremely cold air. Last night across North Finland and Siberia it was -41, and that's the air that's coming our way. Now there is a yellow Met Office warning in place already for snow across a good part of the country. That kicks in tonight from about midnight and really lasting right through the week. At the moment though, it's a fairly dry affair with clear skies as well. It's during the overnight period we'll start to see the first signs of those snow showers pushing in across eastern Scotland, and indeed a very cold night as well, -1 to -4 for most of us. So first thing tomorrow we'll see those frequent snow showers certainly across eastern Scotland, difficult travelling conditions pushing across the country during the morning as well, but actually a wee bit of respite come the afternoon for the Northern Isles. It should be a drier affair, some showers coming and going, but actually some sunshine as well. It will feel cold in the wind. Some sunshine for Caithness, some sunshine in between the showers for the Grampian area. I think the showers ganging together for a time across Fife, Tayside, in towards the Edinburgh area and East Lothian and the eastern borders. But in the west, escaping scot-free, if you like, a lot of dry, sunny weather, not quite as cold up towards the Western Isles and the northwest as well. So tomorrow evening, those showers keep piling in, certainly across eastern Scotland, widespread at times as well. Then as we get into Wednesday, that warning is up to amber status, which means be prepared. Now this is be prepared for difficult travelling conditions. I think everywhere will be affected. The airports, driving will be treacherous, and also if you're out on foot as well. So those snow showers keep piling in through these areas you can see behind me. So be prepared for this. The warning lasts from Wednesday right through to Thursday lunchtime. Frequent snow showers pushing in across central and eastern Scotland, always fewer in the west, and add in the wind, it's going to feel extremely cold. Values of below freezing, but feeling even colder than this. Thursday more is the same. Indeed, the showers actually become more frequent, so we are looking at significant accumulations at all levels. That's your forecast.
Thank you, Judith. Now a reminder of tonight's main news. The minimum price of alcohol in Scotland will be 50 pence per unit. It'll be introduced in May. And that's Reporting Scotland for now. I'll be back with the headlines at 8 and the late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news. Until then, from all of us on the team, have a very good evening.